Hello, boys and girls. We are ready for Chapter 10 in our book, The Monsters of Morley Manor. This chapter is called The Mother of All Frogs. The picture you are looking at is Mount Rushmore. Those are four prominent presidents that are sculpted into the side of the mountain. It's pretty cool, just the scale of this sculpture. It's huge. If you're interested, Google it. It's very, very interesting. Okay. The mother of all frogs. Squatting in the center of that landscape, huge and astonishing, was a creature that looked somewhat like Chug Rug Lala Aspa Lala Ruggum Bump Up, with one major difference. This one was bigger than our house. When I first saw it, I thought it must be some kind of statue the water people had made. But seconds after we cleared the edge of the cliff, the enormous beast rolled its eyeballs in their sockets, looked up at us, blinked twice, then opened its mouth. Out shot a tongue that had to be at least 100 feet long. Like a green ribbon of death, the tongue wrapped around the Wentar and pulled him into the creature's mouth so fast it was almost as if it didn't happen. Panic exploded in my chest. Was this how I was going to die? Swallowed by a giant frog in an alien planet? I looked around frantically for Sarah. She was only a few feet away from me. "Come on," I cried. "Let's get out of here." I reached for her hand. Instinct, I guess, since it was actually a pretty silly thing to do. You can't swim very fast while you're holding hands. "Wait," ordered Chug-Rug Frogbutt. Right, like I was about to wake so he could feed us to his master, or whatever this thing was. But, instinct again, I did turn my head back, and as I did, I saw the Wentar crawl from between the huge creature's lips. He climbed over the tip of its nose until he had found a broad, flat spot where he could stand. Then he motioned for us to swim down and join him. "Should we do it?" whispered Sarah. Gaspar, who was floating nearby, said, "Once again, we find the universe is stranger than we could have guessed. What new things shall we discover in this watery world? Forward, my family, forward." Which pretty much decided things for the Morleys. As for me, I figured if we tried to swim away, the monster would probably just nail us with its tongue anyway. So I nodded to Sarah. "Come on," I said, "let's go." We swam deeper into the mysterious lake. "This is Queen Gunk ala Gunk Gunkism ala Ribbit," explained the Wentar when all 7 of us had joined him on the creature's snout. "She is the mother of us all," added Chuck. "Speak for yourself," said Albert. "She is also my official contact here," continued the Wentar, casting a dark glance at the little hunchback, "and our best chance for solving our problem. We need to go inside to talk to her." "Inside where?" I asked, looking around for a building and wondering how big it would have to be to hold this monster. "Her mouth," said the Wentar. "You have got to be kidding," cried Ludmilla. Melisandre's snakes twisted in alarm. "Humor is not one of my specialities," said the Wentar. "Now follow me. We are being treated with extreme kindness by an incredibly powerful being. It would not be wise to make a fuss about it." Stretching his arms, he swam off the frog monster's snout. Chuck went with him, not even looking back. The rest of us stood for a moment, baffled, astonished, and terrified. Then Gaspar threw back his shoulders. "Family Moleskovich," he barked, "assemble!" Quickly the monsters got in line. "We are the family Moleskovich," said Gaspar solemnly. "We do not flinch from danger. We do not shy from the unknown. I say we go forward." "Forward!" cried the others. "Forward!" I cried, unable to help myself. Which is how Sarah and I ended up following the Morleys over the edge of the Queen's giant snout. We hadn't been off the Frogmaster's nose for more than 3 seconds when her great mouth opened, and a rush of water pulled us into a dark space. A space that got even darker when the mouth closed again. This time I was sure we were done for. But a second later, the Wentar did some of his magic, and a dim light blossomed around us. The inside of the Queen's mouth was slightly smaller than my bedroom. Her tongue looked like a spongy shag rug. Sarah and I drifted down to stand on it as the others were doing. I was relieved to find it was not as sticky and slimy as I had feared. Toward the rear of her mouth I saw a pair of bulges which, I finally realized, must have been the back of her eyeballs. Beyond those bulges was the vast darkness of her throat, something I didn't intend to get anywhere near if I could help. Suddenly a deep thrum filled the air around us. It took me a moment to realize that the sounds were words, huge, booming words. Later, the Wentar explained that the Queen formed them by making a very tiny, for her anyway, rumble in her throat. Greetings to the Wentar of Ardus and his companions. Greetings to Queen Gunk a la Gunk Gunk Ipsum a la Ribbit, replied the Wentar, and our thanks to you for sheltering warmth of your mouth. May your progeny ever increase and your children number in the millions. Yeah, they already do, replied the Queen, sounding somewhat tired. 2,413,579 to be precise. Madam, you outdo yourself, said the Wentar admiringly. I undo myself, she replied. Now let us get down to business, Wentar. I understand you are involved with that messy little planet called Earth. Indeed I am, replied the Wentar. In fact, I have 7 of its people with me on this trip. I thought it was nice of him to count Bob as a person. That is highly unusual, is it not? Asked the Queen. The circumstances were unusual. I have become rather more involved in their affairs than I would like. I brought these young ones with me because we were being pursued. Ah, said the Queen, let me guess. The creatures of the red haze. Indeed, said the Wentar. He sounded a bit surprised. Creatures of the red haze? Asked Gaspar. He sounded as confused as the Wentar had sounded surprised. It is a name sometimes used for Flinduvians, said the Wentar. The red haze is a condition unique to their species, a kind of anger beyond anger that they sometimes slip into. The results can be remarkable. It is not a suitable condition for a civilized being, said the Queen. Agreed, said the Wentar, which is one reason I am monitoring them. I am almost certain they are up to something. Do you have any idea what it is? That I cannot tell you, replied the Queen. Before the Wentar could express his disappointment, she added, However, perhaps one of my children will be able to give you some information. Suddenly, I felt a vibration so powerful that at first I thought it was an earthquake. Sarah staggered against me. I saw all the monsters crouching, holding on to one another, trying to keep from tumbling over. And then I realized whatever was going on couldn't be an earthquake because we were standing on a giant tongue. Our hostess was our hostess trying to swallow us? What was that? Gaspar demanded when the vibration stopped. I have sent out the water call, replied the Queen. I'm sorry you could not understand it. It will travel many miles. If any of my children have knowledge of this thing, they will come to us. She hesitated, then added, They have no choice. Must be a mom thing, whispered Sarah. Before 5 minutes had passed, the Queen said, Ah, a response. I'm going to ask you to go outside for the discussion. I grow tired of trying not to swallow. Once she had said that, she could not open her mouth fast enough to suit me. Together our little party swam out to meet the creature and had answered the Queen's call. He looked enough like Chuck to be his brother, which, of course, he was. He said his name was Unk Lala Aspa Ribba Ribba Glibbit, and then added, But you can call me Unk. We found a place to sit next to the Queen's left rear foot, which towered above us. Once we Earthlings had introduced ourselves, Unk said, Mother says you want to know about the Flinduvians. That is correct, said Wentar. Specifically, what is it that they want with Earth? Oh, I know nothing about that, Unk said quickly. I didn't believe him for a second. His eyes were desperate, haunted, as if he was lying, not because he wanted to, but because he was afraid to tell the truth. Chuck saw it too. Speak truly, my brother, he said fiercely. I demand it by the bond of our blood. Unk's eyes rolled back in his head. He shivered as if taken by a chill. I know nothing about it, he croaked. In your mother's name I command you to speak, cried the Wentar. Unc began to tremble more violently. Suddenly, as if the fear was too much, he turned and started to swim away. Catch him, the Wentar said. I was the closest. I grabbed Unc's leg. The purple skin was slick beneath my fingers, the leg astonishingly strong. I clung to it with all my might, though I couldn't stop him by myself. I slowed him enough for the others to grab him. He thrashed wildly. Suddenly I had an idea. Turn him on his back, I shouted. Gaspar looked startled. No, said Chuck, don't. The rest of us looked at him surprised. It's not dignified, he said softly. I think the others might have ignored my strange request if not for that, but the tension in Chuck's voice made it clear that something about putting Unc on his back had power in it. So despite Chuck's protests, the monsters wrestled Unc to the silty floor of the lake. As they held him down, his arms and legs pinned out straight, I began to stroke his belly, working from the throat down, just as I had done 100 times with the frogs I had caught in the swamp or at the edge of Grandma and Grandpa's farm. Of course, Unc was so big that I had to use my whole hand rather than my fingertip. But the idea was the same. You shouldn't do that, said Chuck softly, wringing his webbed hands together. You shouldn't do that. Unc blinked his eyes, quickly at first and then more and more slowly. Soon his struggles grew less violent. Gradually his arms and legs relaxed. A moment later he was lying limp and still. Now, is the Wentar of Ardis content? Chuck asked bitterly. I stepped back, feeling very clever. That was really good, Anthony, whispered Sarah. Shh, hissed Melisande Snakes. The Wentar bent over Unc. Have you been in contact with the Flinduvians? He whispered. Without opening his eyes, Unc nodded. The Wentar looked more sad than angry. Placing his mouth close to the side of Unc's head, the water guy didn't really have an ear, just a brownish circle, he urgently said, What do the Flinduvians want with Earth? Unc made a deep sound in his throat. Then, as if the words were being dragged from someplace deep within him, he said, They want Earth's ghosts. Wentar blinked. The monsters made watery cries of astonishment. Sarah moved closer to me. Without intending to, I asked the next question. What for? Unc's answer, which came out almost as a sob, astonished us all. They're going to use them as batteries. And that is the end of our chapter, boys and girls. Until next time.